My name is Nicole Duncan, and I'm doing my paper on racism. Um, Racism, is it worse then, or is it worse now? I personally feel that it's pretty bad now. But in my paper today, in the speech that I'll be giving you, I will be using pronouns. When I'm done speaking, I want the audience to see that racism is pretty much still here. It is a major factor today and is still as strong as it was in the 50s, if not stronger today. Biblical references will be shown that racism was a good start and race is an issue, just not spoken out loud, or is not a big problem at all. I will give good examples that it's just not color but also a gender. And sex racism can be seen through pointing out poems, quotes from famous people, inspirational quotes, as well as movie quotes. By using laughter when I am saying something funny, which can't promise that I will, and something as serious racism that causes so many problems as something extreme as murder. Extending my voice when the seriousness proceeds with my paper. Pronouncing my words and speaking slowly. Speaking slowly is something that I have a major problem doing. I'm a very fast speaker, and I feel that's probably where I'm going to have my problem, and it's going to be pointed out. The audience will be able to understand where I, as a person, am coming through with my views of my First Amendment and opinions on this topic. Everyone as a human has their own opinions, and like I said, racism is still pretty strong today. I will make sure to thank you as my listener to show that I have come to an end of my speech. Hey, stop! That man! He's dressed in a robe, and I bet he has a bomb on that plane. Racism. This has been an issue throughout the time, starting back to the slavery days, when slavery was not as big of an issue as it is now. At that time, it was acceptable and encouraged not only as a form of tradition, but as a form of freedom and employment opportunity, which is sad to say. Racism is not only just a black and white issue, but much, much more today. Maybe not just necessarily on black and white issues as many of us think it is, but if you think back, racism started back in the biblical era with Jesus Christ. In Galatians 3:28 is a very good acceptable part to look into for a very amazing issue on race. It states for black, white, and religion. But if you think back also as American Indians, Middle Eastern races are as well do very much today more than any other race, I do believe. And that all goes back and stems to terrorist attacks. Racism is a very, very major epidemic. It's outspoken very lightly as it is silent. I'll ask you today, what can you do as a person to contribute to the ignorance of racism? When you hear the word racism, you think color against color. Really? But it's more than that. It's culture against culture. It's who feels that they're much more inferior of a race than the other. Many skeptics have said, as well as polls have been taken, that the white race feels that they are much more inferior than the other. It always has been, and it always will be. Segregation was a very much struggle that never got accomplished the way that it should have been. It's also religion against religion, whose religion is much better than the other. No one. We should all worship one person, that is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, I'm sorry. Does anyone ever look at racism past the color issue? I don't think so. To see a racism issue that also lies within culture, it is also gender as well. People are being affected by the issue from any starting age, as young as someone who's able to listen to the fact that they are able to speak hateful words of any racist culture, sex, gender, bias, political sex. There's also very much in sexual issues and religious reasons strong as color. What can we do as civilized people to not participate in such an ignorant manner of hate? This is where, as you as an audience, I would hope that you could get involved. After asking this question publicly to curfews on the internet, personally, just walking up to strangers about racism, I finally got some of these results. This was mainly the main result I got, only because a lot of people watch TV and it affects their lives. It is shown mainly about gender and the workforce and political racism. The answer I did get was, it's definitely showing its ugly face in the forefront back again today as it did back in the day, when women in the 50s were not expected to work, stay at home, be housewives and mothers, meet their husbands at the door. Think about what politicians are saying about women. They should not be able to make the decision to work and to make any more money than a man does. The man should always be the breadwinner, should always bring home more money. Also look at the fact that same-sex marriages, homosexuality has always been an issue probably as well, and one can only hope that it will be legalized in more than just 6 states. It should not be allowed in general because of such religious issues. It's Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve. It should not be allowed in the military. So, racism is blown out of proportion and can only be ingested by people as reason to cause conflict in the world. That's not necessarily true. That's pretty much a fable or a tall tale or a myth. There's just an opinion. It's just something to bring in there to give you reason to think. No one is born hating another person because of the color or his or her skin, her or his background, or his or her religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to a human heart than the opposite. That's a quotation from a very famous man who tried his best, Nelson Mandela. The answer that I came up with and that I found was, does anyone ever look at racism past its color to see that racism issues also lies within culture, an issue of gender as well? To those facing racism, all I can say is be brave. Stay strong. To those racists, deep down in your heart you know that it is wrong. God blessed us by putting us here, giving us all different shades of color. We are not meant to have the same color as people. Jesus did not want that in God if you believe in religion. The same color of skin, but we can all respect one another as a human being, and that's what we are meant to be. That is a poem quoted. I took a poll, and looking at statistics, they showed that gay marriages are as much as a race issue as color. It showed that most people support gay marriage rights. Anyone that looks at equality would. According to the poll, 53% say that government should legally recognize same-sex marriages. Who is the government to say that you can now love who you want to love? Male and male, female and female, male and female, female and male. You be the judge. An example of racism is this, because we, as people, saw the types of culture that caused the terrorist attacks on the United States and many other countries, but mainly the United States of America. When we see anyone of Middle Eastern descent, anyone that has a different shade, a little bit darker, they can recognize, we as people can recognize that they are not Hispanic descent, but more of the, I have a dot in the middle of my forehead. I am Muslim, I am Buddhist, I am Islam, I am Jewish, and Judaism descent. We get nervous as people, especially on a plane. And we make what we think are funny comments, but they're not, because someone might be overhearing us. And you never know how that's going to react, and it usually ends up in anger. But what an example are we setting for our younger generation? Not a good one. The best way to help them lighten this mood of seriousness in such a topic of serious would be humor. Jon Stewart, he hosts night shows, stated at the 78th Annual Academy Awards that we have got movies about racism, prejudice, and censorship, murders, and all that. This is why we go to the movies, or escape. How true is that? All I can say is racism, prejudice, and discrimination against any age, any color, anyone and everyone. You, me, anyone who's watching my video. It's all a major problem. This will probably never go away. We as mature and educated people, quote unquote, will not let this go away. Many people that I've spoken to, as well as myself, think, I'm not a racist. I thought racism was about color and color, black and white. Needless did I ever think until I thought. It's not just color. One needs to stop and think about this. How many times have you as a person, I've done it, I know everyone has done it, not just like I said, color and color, it could be religion, it could be sex. How many times have you joked about religion, gender, political sex, and race against someone outside our own views and beliefs? Would never think that affected anyone, or nobody heard you. Unlikely they did. I just like to thank you for listening to my first part of my speech. Please leave your comments and tell me what you think.